South African President Cyril Ramaphosa really let it go yesterday in Parliament when he was addressing some who supported him. Didn't get really much cheering, but he believes that BEE needs to be hardened. It needs to be doubled down on to get South Africa into a better place. We talk with the chief economist of the Efficient Group, Dawie Roodt, to get some insights. Dawie, I sent you the important part of the president's conversation, and I'd love to get some insights from you on whether this is really going to turn South Africa around into a position that it desperately needs, given the high unemployment and the poor economic growth that we're experiencing.
Yeah. Hi, Alec. I listened to what the president had to say, and I must tell you, I am absolutely horrified because clearly our president doesn't know the basics about economics. He doesn't understand the modern economy, and obviously the kind of policies that the ANC is putting in place is simply not supportive of economic growth in a modern economic environment. Maybe I could just stand back a little bit and just to try to explain what I'm trying to say in terms of economic growth and where everything comes from and why I think the president is so completely and totally wrong. Remember, modern economies centers around service industry, the tertiary industry. Modern economies are based on two things, of many things, but two things are very important. One is skills, very special skills, and the other one is technology. And it doesn't matter what part of the economy you're looking at. Agriculture is an excellent example for me for that. Is that if you look at agriculture, everybody thinks that you must be a farmer today if you want to be involved in agriculture. And I can tell you, there is no, in the modern economy, there is no space for a farmer. If you are not a businessman, you cannot be successful in agriculture either. So if you look at agriculture and see what it consists of, I spoke to an agricultural community this morning, and I listened to how they work, how they produce on their different economic units, because this is what it is, economic units. They are not farms. They've got the input on a farm, for example, or on an economic unit involved in agriculture consists of land. Yes, that is true. But there are many other things. You need a lot of capital, of course, and then crucially important, you need the right kind of structures. Today, in agriculture, for example, it is not a one-man band thing like we had in the past. There are big corporates that they have. They are companies. They are run by boards of directors. They've got chairmen and stuff like that. They've got remuneration committees. They've got audit committees. They are big companies, and those people need very, very special skills. But that's only part of the structure of agriculture. And today, if you want to get involved in agriculture, you could be anything. You can be a psychologist. You can be an electrician. You can be a drone pilot. You can be a geneticist. And in fact, that is where the actual value add in agriculture is happening today. It happens in skills. That's where it is. Now, listening to the president, it sounds like he got his economic training somewhere in the 1920s. He sounds like Karl Marx, because Karl Marx, he thinks that the economic growth centers around so-called capital, and that's where the word capitalism comes from. And capital includes actual money, and it includes land. That's what, in the mind of Karl Marx, that is what matters. And of course, labor. And you put these three things together, then somehow, by magic, you get economic growth. That is not what a modern economy looks like. A modern economy today centers around skills, and it centers around new technology. So if we look at talking about BEE, and I think, again, agriculture is an excellent example. Talking about BEE, and I'm very much in favor of empowerment, but do it the right way, and start where it really, really matters, and that is through skills development. What you must do, you must create an especially good, world-class primary education. And our primary education in South Africa absolutely sucks. It is horrible. We spend more on education than most countries in the world, and the quality of our education is not bad. It is sometimes the worst in the world. And perhaps it starts even before primary education. It starts with very good quality teachers. And we also do not have that. We've closed down how many of these teaching colleges? We do not have that anymore. And it's going to take us decades to get that. And that's what the ANC has done. The ANC basically undermined the whole skills development system in South Africa. And that's why we have really very horrible skills in South Africa. And that's not all. You need a good environment in order to operate and in order to run a business. You need a pavement. You need electricity. You need the Transnet, trains and things that run. You need infrastructure. You need a safe environment. Those are the kind of things that you need if you want to empower people really. Looking at South Africa, the South African economy, primary industries, like for example, mining and agriculture, they are much contribute significantly less, relatively speaking, to the economy than, for example, what you do. The service industry and the tertiary industry. In the meantime, what's been happening in South Africa as well, we have been deindustrializing. We are losing our factories. We are losing our factories because electricity. We do not have electricity. We do not have proper trains that's running properly. So the lack of empowerment in South Africa and the lack of black empowerment in South Africa, the reason for that is because of the ANC. It's because an incompetent ANC with the wrong policies, the wrong ideology, and quite often a corrupt ANC government as well. Do not blame the private sector. The private sector would certainly want to grow their businesses. And we see that. The private sector, where they get the opportunity, they grow that. But if you think you can redistribute wealth and think by redistributing wealth, you're going to increase wealth, you've got it completely and totally wrong. Clearly, our president does not understand the very importance and the essence of a modern economy.
Now, all of what you've said now makes a lot of sense, but how are the public going to understand that? How are the public going to get to a point where they say, no, we can't listen to this nonsense from the 1920s anymore, and we need to do something different?
Well, it's your job. It's your job, and you're doing it's the job of the press to inform people about how economies are, about news and how things are changing. But it's also the job of our political leaders. Our political leaders must stand up and say, "Listen, this is how things actually work," and convince people. And there are, by the way, many institutions that's doing exactly that. The South African Reserve Bank is an excellent example, and many others. For example, even Treasury understands much of this. And that's why they don't make all these silly decisions regarding taxes that quite often what political leaders demand them of making. So they are at Statistics South Africa. They understand these kind of things as well. But I'm afraid our average political leader sitting in parliament, they haven't got a clue about the economy. And that really concerns me. I mean, look at the way that they manage this whole budgetary process, budget one, budget two. I mean, it looked like a bunch of children. The quality of our political leadership is really something that we need to be concerned about. And listen to the president. If that is the president, then I'm afraid if the president sees the economy like the way he tried to explain to us in parliament, then I'm afraid I've got economic growth this year expecting about 1%. No, I don't think we're going to see 1% anymore because clearly the political leadership in South Africa, they don't understand it and they're certainly not going to implement the kind of policies that will lead to stronger economic growth. So the best that we can do is try to convince them. And it's your job, the press, and it, of course, the other institutions that try to explain to politicians the real basics about economic growth. Economic growth needs an environment, a conducive environment, a friendly environment, an efficient state, well-skilled people, a top-notch technology. Look, for example, this disaster around the Starlink. You're taking technology away from the rural areas. You do not allow them to get access to internet, for example, because of political considerations. So who's going to lose out on that? He wants to develop the rural areas, but without internet. At last, it seems to me now as if there's some change of heart because clearly Donald Trump put a lot of pressure on them. Maybe also the comment about the rural development. Does the president know that something like 60% of South Africans today are living in cities? They do not live in the rural areas anymore. And every year that percentage keeps on going up. People do not want to live in the rural areas. We've got this romantic idea about the subsistence farmer. That's tough work. You only make it. It's difficult to be a subsistence farmer. We've got this romantic idea about the rural areas. We want to develop the rural areas. Think about this. It makes much more sense to build a road that's going to serve 1,000 people that building a road is going to serve 10 people, for example. We have to encourage people to move to the cities. We have to build the infrastructure in the cities. It doesn't mean we do not have to develop the rural areas as well. We need to do that. But the emphasis, this idea about this romantic idea of the rural areas, it's completely misplaced. We have to understand that modern economies work differently, and clearly our political leaders do not understand the essence of a modern economy.
Now, Cyril Ramaphosa is fabulously wealthy. He's worth billions of rands. From anybody on the outside looking at him, they would say, well, this guy's made a lot of money. Surely he made it because he's good. He understands what's going on. From what you've told me now, though, he's on the wrong path.
Well, let's be honest about this. Can you give me a name of a business that he has created? I can give you the name of the other rich people, the names of the businesses they've created in South Africa. I don't know what he created. I don't know the name of a business that he created, that he started from scratch. I know Herman Mashaba, black like me, he started that out of the boot of his car. So he's a rich man as well. And he started his own business. He's built his own business. I've got much more confidence in him running the economy than Cyril Ramaphosa. He didn't start any businesses. He got it out of all sort of BE deals. That's where he got his money from. And many other rich people in South Africa, they got their money from starting their own businesses from scratch. I'm not a rich man, but we started the Efficient Group, and after 23 years, we've got a big company, functioning company, and it works well. We're contributing to the economy, and we understand the importance of necessary skills and to make use of the most recent technology. And we're trying to empower the people that work for us to make sure that they have the skills, because in the end, it's going to be good for us as well. But politicians look at this differently, it seems to me. Politicians think that you're going to increase wealth by redistributing it. You're not going to increase wealth. It doesn't make sense to give somebody capital in the sense of Karl Marx, to give somebody capital without the necessary skills. That capital is going to be wasted. That capital is going to lie idle. And there are so many examples of capital in South Africa that is lying idle because of some ideological or political objective of the politicians. Maybe what we need to do, put politicians through economics 101 class and force them to understand what is going on, because the damage that's been caused by the ANC government to South Africa cannot be measured. And it all over the economy. That's my job. I look at the local authorities. I look at the state-owned enterprise. I look at the finances of the state. You and I, we've discussed that, and I can see we've got people here that do not know what to do. People that do not have the necessary competency in order to run many of these institutions. And now they want to, take again, put the wrong policies in place. Well, they have the wrong policies. They will continue on this. They want to double down on these kind of policies. And the economy is not growing, as we all know. So are we suddenly going to see stronger economic growth because they want to have more BEE, or their view of what BEE should be? It's going to lead to an even bigger disaster. We've got the levels of unemployment. We know what it is. And so we've got children dying of hunger in South Africa because of these stupidity or these stupid policies that we have. We've got to make a U-turn here. We have to understand it's the private sector that's going to drive this economy, and the private sector that are well skilled, and a private sector that operate in a friendly environment, and a private sector that's got access to the most recent technology.
And so when you talk to the people who have thrown in their lot with the ANC, and I'm talking here about the Democratic Alliance, who are part of a government of national unity, well, how would you advise them, given the pathway that they are, by being part of the GNU, allies in it?
I'm in two minds on this, Alec. I don't really know how to answer it. And from one way of looking at this, I wanted the DA to be part of this government of national unity. And don't make a mistake, they don't do everything right at DA, but at least they are kind of a counterweight to the silly policies that the ANC is proposing and putting, and that the ANC has. So that's a good thing, having the DA there. The alternative, we know what the alternative can potentially be, and that's going to be really bad for all of us. If the ANC goes to the parties to the left, we're going to have more of this nonsense. Um, there's also, I think, an argument that maybe the DA should leave this government of national unity. Let's leave it to the people of South Africa. Let's trust democracy. to fix the problem, because the problems that we have in South Africa are political. The problem is the ANC and some of the other political parties, but the ANC. So let's leave it to democracy. Let the DA go out there with the message of a real empowerment for all South Africans through economic growth, through skills development, through an efficient state. And let them leave the government of national unity. And let the ANC form a coalition with the MKs or EFFs or whatever. There's going to be another election, and then we kick them all out and get political parties in that can do a much better job. And by the way, I also believe there's room for a political party somewhere between the DA and the ANC. And I don't think the DA has got all the answers, but we've done it before. Let's do it again. Let's change the political landscape for the better for all South Africans.
So when you have a look at the situation that South Africa is at the moment, we've had 17 years now of GDP per capita contracting. In other words, going backwards in our economy. 17 years is a long, long time. What will it take for the leaders of the political situation in this country, for Ramaphosa to stand up and say, I might have got it wrong?
You know, I don't think you're going to change their views. I mean, it's like a religion. I mean, people believe in something and that's what they believe, and you're not going to, not in this, being a socialist or a communist or whatever ideology you pick, the terminology you want to use to call them, they're not going to change. And I believe that we need to change politically in South Africa. But will it, if we do change politically in South Africa and we get a government that's doing a proper job, a government with the right frame of mind, with the right policies, an efficient government that's not corrupt and incompetent and that sort of stuff, will we be able to turn this around? And I can promise you, we're going to turn this around within months. We can turn this around. Within months, we can get this economy to start growing much, much faster. And just imagine what can happen within a year or 2 or 3. If we can get economic growth up to 5 or 6%, forget about all these social and political objectives, or just get this economy to grow and everybody will gain from that. What is happening at the moment now, the capitalists, those bad guys, the industrialists, the rich people, the skilled people, they are leaving South Africa. And in any way, it's becoming more and more difficult to tax them because economic activity is not happening in the primary industries anymore. It's happening in the cloud more and more, and that's where economic growth is shifting to. And we're losing those skilled people in South Africa. So what we're doing now, what's been happening the past 15 years will continue unless we make a total U-turn. And it can happen. It can happen to get this economy to grow again. But I'm afraid, listening to the president and other political leaders, I'm afraid we're a long way from having that U-turn that we so urgently need.
So the message that was sent out yesterday, how would you describe that, and what was wrong with it?
The message that the president sent out is that I haven't got a clue how an economy operates. We've been implementing the wrong macroeconomic policies for how many years now? We're going to double down. We're going to implement more of that, because now we believe if we implement more of the wrong macroeconomic policies, suddenly things are going to start looking better. The president said yesterday that they do not look at this country as being an investor-friendly country. Do not look at this country where we've got political leaders that understand the economy, political leaders that want to create an environment for investments. That's not what this country is. That's the message that the president sent yesterday to the rest of the world and to South Africans. Will we suddenly start investing? Are we suddenly going to keep our money in South Africa, or are we going to keep on deindustrializing the way that we have for many, many years? And I'm afraid it is going to be the latter.
Dawie Roodt is Chief Economist at the Efficient Group. I'm Alec Hogg from BizNews.com.